When I went on Walmart and was looking for fishing gear, I found this little thing, and for the low price of $5.74, I had to buy it. Little did I know this was going to be one of the best fishing purchases I've made in the last few months. And let me tell you, the results speak for themselves. But before I get too far ahead of myself, let's go into it. Alright, so first things first, I gotta unwrap this thing and see what we're working with. So I popped it open, and the first thing I wanted to examine was actually the hooks. Now in the shipping process, some of the hooks spilled into the other compartments, but they were pretty easy to find, and it came with two main types. There's the ones with just the regular lead, and the ones with the painted lead that looks like fish eyes or whatever. I prefer those over the regular lead ones, but the swim baits are better with the regular lead ones. So I felt the plastics, and to be honest with you, they kind of felt all right, kind of what I expected. I went and tried some different color combos on them, and they look pretty good. My favorite is the white with the red eye, but it seemed like the tubes were really flimsy, and I didn't think they were going to do too well. So the first lure I decided to try was the white curly tail grub with the red eye. This is my favorite color combo, and as you can see, it puts in that work. Now the tail action on this one wasn't very good. It was a little bit stiff, but I still was able to land this nice bass. Now this is the biggest bass I have in my pond. It's a spotted bass. It's got that rough spot on his tongue. I do apologize for the video. I accidentally videoed it vertical instead of horizontal, which makes it great for shorts, but it's pretty bad for a full-length video. So I apologize. All these pond videos are going to be this smaller format, but the later on videos I made sure I was videoing widescreen. But this is a beautiful fish. Definitely not what I was going for. I was trying to catch a little bluegill, but definitely not going to complain about catching a bass. So I know already this lure kit can catch fish, so we're going to go ahead and put this bass back and try one of the other lures to see if it's any better. Now since that white worked pretty well, I threw on a white swim bait thing. Now these are a little bit finicky because I've tried some of them and the action's really good, and in some of them it's just really stiff. This one was kind of in the middle. It would swim the tail a little bit, but not nearly as much as I wanted. I found that using a twitching motion was best. But I could not get a single bite. I sat there and casted and reeled and casted and reeled. Probably fished for about 15 minutes with this thing and couldn't even get anything. I got like a nibble from a bluegill, but I could not get anything big to bite. And as you can tell in this next video, it's not that there weren't fish, it's that this just didn't work well. And throughout the entire video, I've tried this out multiple times at different spots, and I just haven't gotten any hits on it. Maybe I'm fishing it wrong. Let me know in the comments. I've tried fishing it slow and fast or whatever. It just never worked. So I switched to the tube. Now, if you remember, this is the one I was the most concerned about because it's real flimsy. And I made a short on this, and so you'll be able to see that. But I really didn't expect this to work. But this whole video is my first cast. It's all in real time. I want you to understand just how good these tubes were. You'll see throughout the entire video, when I use these tubes, I catch fish all the time, anywhere I've gone. And so I hooked into this fish thinking, okay, it's a bluegill, but sure enough, it was not. It was actually a little mudcat. Well, I call them mudcats. I think they're actually called bullhead or yellow bullhead, something like that. And so this catfish bit on it. I've never caught a catfish on a soft plastic, but this one was pretty aggressive, and the first cast, about 30 seconds, and I already caught this fish. So the tubes definitely are approved, and they actually ended up being my favorite lures from this kit. So for $6, this kit has already caught a bass and a catfish out of the pond. Just for my pure enjoyment, that's 100% worth it.
Oh, but you just fishing in a pond. That don't count. You need to go out and catch fish out in the wild.
All right, I hear you. And so what I did is I went ahead and went back to that gator-infested water, tied on this little grub, and went ahead and tried to go fishing. Now, I have caught crappie here, so I know there's crappie in this area. At least there are sometimes. But I went ahead and threw out this grub, and the results kind of speak for themselves. Now, last time I came out here, I was going for baby bass, only ended up catching one, couldn't really catch much of anything else. But this time, I came for crappie specifically, and I mean, if a baby bass bit on, I wouldn't gonna complain, but I was trying to catch crappie to eat, and then if I didn't catch any crappie, small fish would go in the bait pond up front, and then any big fish like bass or large bluegill would go back into the back pond. So I cast out right here by these little supports, and sure enough, after a couple of seconds, I got a bass, and brought it in. He fell off. I had to scramble to grab it before he got got away, but that'll be perfect in the back pond, and it proves that this thing can catch bass. Not monsters, but bass nonetheless. So now that I caught one on the curly grub, I went back to this tube just to see how much better it would be. I know that this thing has been smoking them in the pond, and so I went ahead and threw this sucker out there, expecting it to take a good couple minutes to get a bite, especially since I had just pulled one out. So I threw in the same spot a couple of times, didn't get another bite. I had one little bluegill chase it, but it wasn't big enough to really eat the bait. So I went ahead and cast back out by the supports. And when I tried to, it ended up going a little bit too far to the left, so I had to stick my rod tip pretty far out to try and retrieve it so it wouldn't get caught in the weeds. And then, just like that, I got hooked into another little baby bass. This one stayed on the hook, and I got a pretty good view of him. Really beautiful, perfect size. Again, this spot's been great for catching little baby bass. I just haven't caught it always on video, so I was super stoked to finally catch some videos of me catching these bass. And went ahead and threw back out again right by those supports. It seems like they like to hang out near the base of them, so I'd let it sink, then twitch it off and work it mostly off the bottom. It's pretty shallow here. I wouldn't say it's more than 3 or 4 foot at the deepest, especially right now. The water's about 2 foot low. But again, smacked it over by the supports. I'm sorry about the camera angle right here, but I hooked into yet another one. And I was on the opposite side of the bridge, so I had to run and hurry up and get across the bridge over to the live well bucket. But this was another one. This was number 3, all in the span of maybe an hour at this spot. So then I hurried up, put the fish in the live well, and then ran back to try and catch some more fish before it was getting too late in the evening. Sadly, this spot didn't pan out anymore. So after throwing that tube a few more times, I packed it in and went home. So these are the 3 fish we caught. This one's an absolute monster, probably 10 pounds. I let him go in the pond. This one was probably 15 pounds, and I finally got the camera to actually focus here. So this one was probably 15 pounds, might have been pushing 16. So I let him go, and then this last one, he was the biggest. He was probably 25 pounds, so monster fish out of that creek. And then I just released him back. The ball swam away, perfectly healthy, and I packed it in for the night and planned on going back the next day. So the next day, I had to go more in the middle of the day because I was busy in the evening. And I went out, cast out a few times, and hooked into this little baby bass. Again, about the same size as the others, about 20 pounds, and brought him back to the house. So this is me releasing him into the pond. He was real pretty, brighter color than the others, and he just disappeared and swam away. So at this point, I realized I wasn't going to catch any crappie underneath that bridge, so I wanted to go out and catch some other species. So I came to this local bayou, and this spot's fished quite often, so it's pretty trashy, and it's very unfortunate that people just leave junk everywhere. I try to clean up a little bit of the trash whenever I'm at a different spot, just to be courteous, and I make sure I don't leave any of my crap anywhere. Casting this little tube that was working so well in other spots, there was just a ton of vegetation that it kept getting hung up on, so I decided to go over and cast next to some cypress trees just to see if I would be able to hook into a fish. I tried slow retrieval, but it didn't really work, so I started bouncing it off the bottom, and I actually saw this fish come up to it and hit it. And so it was a pretty cool thing. He came off immediately, so I had to jump down on him and grab him. But this right here is a warmouth, goggle eye, red eye sunfish, whatever you want to call them. They got real big mouths like a bass, but they're some kind of sunfish. So I put him in the live well. I was going to stick this guy in the back pond. Spoiler alert, he ended up not making it, so we turned him into dinner. But still, really cool catch. It was only about 2 minutes after I got into the spot, so I was feeling really, really happy. I decided to try a bobber so I could cast this out further. This pole really ain't made for light lures. This is actually my catfishing pole. I just wanted something with some stronger line, so I was using it anyways. Probably could have just restrung my other poles, but I didn't feel like doing that, so, suffered from my own laziness, threw out the bobber a few times. I just kept getting my bobber itself hit by gar, and nothing was hitting my lure. So I ended up canceling that strategy and going back to without the bobber. I also decided it was time to test out that swim bait again, and this time out in a wild area. So I still had the bobber at this point, so I hurried up, took that thing off, and got over to the water so I could throw it out. Now, like I said earlier, this thing did not have much action. This lure in particular just wasn't cutting it. It just was super stiff. It would be decent if I flicked it around, but it just wasn't attracting any attention. So I switched back to the old bread and butter, the tiny little tube. These things have done great, and I had the bobber on this time so I could cast it out far. And of course, whenever I go to cast it, I had to get hung up right there on this stupid plant. Story of my fishing career right there. But then I noticed this little cypress tree over to the right of me, and I decided to just jig up and down right there, see if I could get the attention of a fish hiding in a crevice somewhere. Unfortunately, the camera angle I had because I was leaning over isn't the best, but I was able to hook into this fish. Now, according to my Google search, this is a red-spotted sunfish. I could be wrong. Let me know in the comments. I'm still trying to learn to identify all these different sunfish. But it was beautiful, beautiful. Wanted that in the bait pond 100%. If they spawn, I want this kind of genetics in my pond. They're so pretty. I've caught these under that bridge before, and I just love them. They're some of the prettiest fish down here in Louisiana. So this is the spot I'm fishing at, and to be honest with you, if you ever think of Louisiana, this is probably the type of environment you think of. This is one of my favorite spots, not because the fishing's great, but because it's just so beautiful. I think that we tend to take nature for granted nowadays. But anyways, put the bobber back on with the curly tail grub and started to retrieve it. And then in this video, you can actually see the wake that something was creating as it was following me. Now, again, a lot of these stupid gar were biting my bobber instead of my bait. And so I was trying to work it to where it'd go in front of their face. I didn't care if I caught a gar or not. Like, I really wanted to just catch a fish. It had been about 45 minutes since I caught a fish. So I see this wake coming up, and it kept following my bait all the way to this grass, and it just kept hitting my stupid bobber. But I was thinking it was a gar, and that was kind of proven wrong after a couple minutes. So I don't know if you guys know what a bowfin is, or a grinnell, shoe peak. There's a lot of different names for it. But it's a fish that's got a bony head. Not many people like to eat it, and it puts up a heck of a fight. But the thing about these things is you actually catch them more often on a tiny hook than a big hook. But I ended up landing them, and these things have some wicked teeth usually, so I was kind of hesitant to put my hand near its mouth. This one actually had tiny teeth that you couldn't really even see, but still it was a fun fish to catch. I had to grab him before he slipped in the water. This one was right at 16 inches, which is the legal limit to keep them. And I actually like eating shoe peak because I know a way to cook it. I'll do a video coming soon on how to cook trash fish in a way that is awesome. Honestly, I prefer to keep these fish over some of the other fish because when you cook it right, it is so dang good. But anyways, this is the shoe peak, and it's one of my favorite fish to catch out here. Now, after this fish, I did pack it up and go to a different spot because this spot's usually been pretty good. It's more of a catfishing spot for me, but there's lots of bluegill that hang out here, so I was trying to test my luck. Unfortunately, my luck would run dry, and we spent the rest of the evening right here until it was time to pack it in and go to the house. Now, I had collected some vegetation to put in the front pond because we need something to help clear up the water, oxygenate the water. I want it to be as natural as possible, also to give the fish some cover. So after getting a handful of plants, I dumped out the fish and found out that the small bluegill was still alive. Or not bluegill, I'm sorry, the red-spotted sunfish or whatever. So I gathered up all the seaweed and brought him over to the front pond. I released him. He kind of just slipped under. The water's real murky right now, so I can't really see him. But I threw out this stuff in a lot of different areas just to spread it out. I know this stuff spreads quickly. It cleans the water out perfectly. That's why the water's so crystal clear in that area. And so this is a great addition. I know that there's not really any diseases or anything in my local area, so it's perfect to put in this front yard pond. Gives them tons of cover, tons of air, and purifies the water for them. The next thing I did was find out that the goggle eye was unfortunately deceased, so I put him along with the shoe peak in my hands to take into the house for cleaning and eating. Tomorrow I'm going to be cooking them up. I'll do a video on that coming pretty soon. That won't be a weekly video, that'll just be an extra video. But this is what they look like on the cutting board. Pretty good size. These ones are pretty good eating. Like I said, you can't see this guy's teeth, which is really unfortunate because usually they have some nasty ones. And then there's the goggle eye. But that's all I caught from this one, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Next time, I'm going to be stocking the front yard pond with bluegill. I might catch other fish in that video as well, who knows. But I'd like to catch some bluegill, sunfish, other kinds of bait fish, maybe through cast netting, through using these lures, live bait, whatever. And then also getting some more plants to put both around the pond and in the pond. Also, it'll be a full update on everything from releasing the gar and adding grass and all kinds of stuff. So subscribe to this channel so that you'll always be notified when we get new stuff. Tons of stuff in the works. We've got fishing videos. We've got some gun videos coming up. Also, I'm thinking about digging a hand-dug wildlife pond and then putting a trail camera out to see what goes to it. So if that's something you'd be interested in, comment down below. I appreciate all of you guys for watching. If you watched all the way through this, then I want to let you guys in on a little secret. The giveaway is so close to being done, to where we can actually give away those fishing lures. So make sure you're subscribed and comment on the short. I'll link it in the description. But comment on that short. I'll be randomly picking someone whenever we reach 500 subscribers, and I will be shipping it to you for free if you win. So don't forget to do that, guys. As always, Jesus loves you, I love you, and have a great day.